and welcome to Coproduce Care's Chat for Care. My name is Sophie Chester-Glynn, as is down on the screen, and I am director at Coproduce Care, and I am delighted to have a really fantastic lineup today. So we have Martin Routledge and Anna Severwright with us, and they're both going to be talking to us about what does social care mean, how we're going to reconceptualize the idea of social care, how we're providing services, is that the way we need to talk about it, and a whole heap of things that they're doing with their organizations in order to put together some fantastic conversations with the local authorities, with the government, politicians, and really changing the debate around social care and what we're doing and how we provide support for people and how we talk about it. So some people might know about Social Care Future. If you don't, then stay tuned. Make sure that you bring people along to listen about this, because it's one of the things that I think needs to be on every head of adult social care's desk, really, the idea of changing the conversation and the focus of social care. So please bring people along. Let's have a great conversation and a debate about this. And a few pointers from us is that we really want to get as many people to the stream as possible. Even if you're watching back, as most people do later on in the day, then please do share, please do like, make sure that you are subscribing to us on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're watching on Facebook, then to like our page and encourage people to come along. I will in a moment try and do a watch party on some groups, so hopefully some people will join us then. But before I do, I'm really enthused by the work that Martin and Anna are doing, and I was really impressed to see that some of you might have seen her give evidence to the Health and the Social Care Select Committee a few weeks ago. So just to give you a context on what's important to her, one of the things that's really struck me as something we need to focus on more, I'm going to play a video for you of Anna giving evidence at the Select Committee.
Before I talk about the social care system from a funding perspective, I just wanted to comment on the integration that we've just heard about between health and social care. So as someone that uses quite a lot of health and social care in my life, what I really need is for them to be working together towards one common goal, and that goal is set by me, that I can get on as best as possible with my life. And so, to be honest, the structure and the system that they do that in doesn't really matter for me. What matters is the outcome and people's lives. I think
I'm going to stop it there because we're going to hear more from Anna in a minute, but I love the focus there about the people's lives. It's not so much the structure, about people's lives, bringing care really back to what we are all about, which is people. We don't often hear about that. So I just wanted to give a bit of context around that. So without me going on any longer, I'm going to bring Martin into the stream. So hello, Martin. Hi, how are you?
Hi there, Sophie. Yeah, I'm good, thanks.
Very good to see you, and I'm so glad to have you on. I've really wanted to have you on for such a long time. So where should we start? I kind of feel like the focus, you're doing so many different things, but I wouldn't mind really honing in on the idea around Social Care Future and what it is, and what does it mean?
Yeah. Okay, so just in a nutshell, I suppose, we started about 2 years ago, and we're a group of people, organizations, groups who have come together around a shared desire to see really big change in what we currently call social care. We share a frustration that the ways in which people are able to access support when they need it, through disability or age or long-term health condition or whatever, have not really changed substantially in decades. The main ways in which people are offered support is pretty much the same now as it was 30 years ago. And the ways that adult social care spend is made is on the same things. And we feel that if you were to start with a blank sheet of paper and ask what would you do? What would you spend money on to create a situation in which people who, for one reason or another, at some point in their lives need some form of support, can have good lives in their localities and communities like everyone else? What would you do? And our view is that we wouldn't create the set of systems and services and practices that we have now. We would create something really different. And we were frustrated that this didn't seem to be changing. Obviously, there are real problems and have been for many years now around the money that's available for social care. And it's really clear that a significant amount of additional money is going to be needed to make things better. But we also noted that even 10 years ago, before the big cuts started in social care, we didn't see significant change, rapid change towards something different. And we were frustrated because we knew that around the country, there were lots of what we call glimpses of the future, different and better ways in which support was being offered to people. And yet these things seem to stay on the margins, not come into the mainstream. And we've been asking ourselves why that is, what needs to change to make those things come in from the margins. And so we've been organising ourselves as a movement, really, an informal network. We're not an organisation. We don't have paid staff. We don't have a regular source of money coming into us or anything like that. We're a network of people who've come together around a vision that we've developed over the last 2 years. And essentially, if we sign up to the vision, we can be part of the movement. So I don't know if it's worth me just reading out the vision.
Well, I want to go back a little bit because there's so much to unpick there. When you said that if you were going to design care services, you wouldn't design them the way they're designed now. I mean, I would like to know more about what that system would look like. Is that something that you've had? Because I know that part of what you do in Social Care Future is that you're thinking about a movement. It's not like an organization that wants to do things top down. You're bringing people into this discussion. You're almost doing what I feel everybody wants to do with social care right now. Find out who it is, what it is, but you're not moving it from the point of view of what do organizations want it to be. It's more around what do the people who are involved deeply in doing social care or experiencing social care, what do they want? So presumably, have you got that vision from those people?
Yeah, so over the past 18 months or so, we've been bringing groups of people together to have that discussion. What would it look like if it was great? What would you want it to do? How would you want it to do it? So we keep bringing people together. We keep asking that question. And we don't start from how would you change residential care or how would you change home care, because those are the ways in which things are currently done. We start from what would good life look like and how might that be supported. And people have been providing us with ideas and images and metaphors that have enabled us to then build up a vision. And so we've got, a short vision that we are fleshing out in the engagements that we're doing with people. And I think a really important thing to say, Sophie, is that we're not a think tank, although we're doing some thinking. What we are is a group of people coming together as a movement for change, to take action, to work out what we should do, how that will have impact, who's in our network that we want to engage and bring in and influence. And one of the good things about the movement and the network is that it's very wide and very deep. So it's not single groups. We have many people who use social care, and the families of people use that social care. We have frontline workers and staff and professionals and managers and providers and commissioners and politicians and academics. So what unites us is an idea of how social care might be and working together to bring that about, as opposed to we represent a single strand of opinion or a single group.
I love that. And what, in terms of the kind of ideas that are coming out from those conversations, do you have anything that's a theme that really kind of might speak to what we're going through in COVID, and just feeling at a loss of what do we do? Do we need to have a concept of social care before it gets totally reformed? I know I've got a few things I could share, like the social care future plans. I don't know if that would help, just to bring up that overlay.
I don't know if you've got the short vision, the 280 character vision.
Is it this one?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So essentially, that's what people have come up with in the time that we've been spending together. And you'll see that in the main part of that vision, which is tweetable, the words social and care don't come up. Because what we're talking about is not what a system is and looks like, but what we want. So we're starting from what we want. We worry that a lot of the discussions about social care are starting from how it is and working out how to make some marginal changes to it. We think that's the wrong place to start. We should start with what it is that we want, and that's what we want, that 280 character vision.
So I'm just going to read it out for anyone who's just listening. So we all want to live in the place we call home, with the people and things that we love, in communities where we look out for one another, doing things that matter for us. That's the social care future we seek. Now, that seems like something that anybody who has any type of involvement in their community would want, which is great to see. And I suppose it breaks down those barriers of otherness, really. But the only thing that some people might say is that tangible? Can we then put that into an action plan that we can do something about? How does it filter out, or is that the point, to have it there as a statement, as a mission, and then people need to almost like judge themselves to that every time that they put things in place?
Yeah, it's what we want to work from. So the question that we ask ourselves and others is, how do we make that happen? So if we're going to have supports and services and systems and activities and practice in what we currently call social care, what are those things that could lead that to be people's reality? Because that it isn't the case at the moment. For example, in most parts of the country, if you get older, get to the point where you're struggling to be supported in your own home, the responses that we as a society make to you aren't ones that have those things as their primary objectives. They have objectives that are more around helping you stay alive than having a life. The two things that adult social care spends most of its money on are residential care and home care. And the way that we currently commission and are able to provide what we currently call home care tends to be time and task, life and limb. And most people who are not able to continue to live in their original home have no option, no choice about what that will be. Very many people have a period of time in hospital, and then if they're not able to be supported back home, they have very little choice about what happens to them. And we tend to see and describe and enact social care as if it's a place where we go to when we can't live our ordinary life anymore. And our view is that it should be a way of supporting to continue to live the life that you want. Whatever your circumstances, that's what it should be. We know that that's not an easy thing to do, or else maybe we would have done it by now. But we do think that it is something that all of us would want. You didn't play all Anna's clip, and she might say some more about what was in that clip later on. But when people are asked if they imagine a future where they might need some support, they don't tend to describe what it is that we offer them in reality. They tend to describe living at home with friends and family, with support coming in that helps them to continue to do the things that are important to them, to have friends and relationships, and spend time doing things that are purposeful to them. And we've ended up with a situation, and this is not the fault of anybody who works in social care. I mean, if anything has been revealed by COVID over the past 4 months, is how amazing the people are that work in social care, and how far they will go to support people's safety and well-being. That's not at issue. The issue, we've ended up with a system that emerges from institutional roots, and to some extent professional roots, where there's an us and a them. And what we're arguing is it's all us.
Absolutely, and it makes total sense. I do want to bring Anna in for her experiences as well of this weird thing we have, and I find it as being a care provider and the way that when you're in discussions with local authorities or commissioning, it's all about what we do rather than how we involve the people that are involved in care, whether it's people who actually are on the ground supporting people or whether it's people who are actually being supported. There's lack of person-centeredness at all levels of commissioning, and any conversation you have, it's quite striking. But you get into this kind of habit of not missing it and not realizing it's not there. So when people do invite people with lived experience or people who are using services into conversations, it's like a big thing, and I'd love to hear more from her perspective how that plays out and how that feels really. But I'd love to know more about you, Martin. How did you get involved with Social Care Future?
Well, I suppose I'm getting on a bit now, Sophie. I'm 60 a few months ago, and so I've had quite a long career. So I did 20 years working in local government and around local government, and 15 years working in central government and national agencies around social care and health. I've worked hard all that time, and I've done my best, and I've worked with great people, and I've seen great things happen. But as I moved towards the end of my formal career, I made a decision that I wanted to step away from working with the kind of big national agencies. My last job was as head of person-centred care at NHS England, and I wanted to go back to my roots really. And my career started, I was planning to be a teacher, but I decided to take a year off after finishing university. And I was a community service volunteer for a year in Coventry. And it absolutely opened my eyes. It was a family-led, local community-led support for local people who, for different reasons, found themselves homeless. And it just blew me away what could happen if things were led in that kind of way. And so that kind of set me off. And then, you go into your career and you do jobs of various kinds. And sometimes you kind of lose touch with that thing that initially inspired you. But that's where I come back to. So most of my time I spend doing community circles, which is another conversation for another time, maybe. But what I found was that after I'd been kind of released, as it were, from doing these jobs for the big national organizations, I'd learned, I think, quite a lot. I'd made a lot of connections and relationships that were usable. And I was able to be freer, really, to speak and act more freely than I'd been sometimes, inevitably working for those kinds of organizations. And I found that lots of people were frustrated like me, that they were putting loads of energy in, they were reasonably skilled and smart, but still we weren't managing to shift this kind of beast of social care. We were still doing pretty much the same things that we'd done 20, 30 years before, and they were increasingly not right and not relevant for people. And we thought, we don't want to make little changes, we want to make big changes. And one of the problems is because everybody has got their heads down, working so hard, just trying to do their best and keep the show on the road, it's very hard to have a vision. And when you're in a situation where so much money has been taken out of the system and you're kind of crushed trying to do the things that seem right and that matter to people, it's very hard to think we could do something amazing, because what you tend to think is, I've just got to keep the show on the road. And we found that the thing that really sparked us off was the National Adult Social Care Conference that's held every year. And, so for 3 days of the year, the leadership of social care come together to have debates and do sessions and go to exhibitions and things like that. So the directors of social services and the heads of council social service committees and people like that come together. And we felt that it was a kind of lost opportunity. Those people were coming together, and they were talking about how to keep the show on the road, and it was understandable why they did that. But we felt that they should be talking about what could the future look like, what's in the way of that, and what can we do about it. And so we wanted to encourage more of that to happen. And so we held a parallel conference in the same time, in the same place in Manchester. Because the other thing that it felt was missing, and this is kind of representative of social care, the sector and debates, is that not everybody who should be there was there, able to put their tuppence worth in. And the people that were really starkly missing were the people that were being talked about. So all these people come together to talk about how social services should be. And as Anna asked the president of ADAS at the time, so you're talking about me at that conference? And he said, yes. And she said, well, shouldn't I be there? I mean, that's a story that maybe Anna can tell. But what we found was, when we decided to hold a parallel conference with different people talking about different things, with a focus on what the future might look like and what's in the way of it and what we might do, we found that hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people wanted to do the same thing. And they came, 300 people came for 2 days, and many more hundreds of people came to us and said, we really, really want to have a discussion about the future and how you get there. Not a fantasy discussion, but it does have to start with a vision. And if all we're talking about all the time is how do we make minor changes to stuff that really isn't working well enough for either the people that work in it or the people that use it, we're never going to change it.
Absolutely. And are you concerned that COVID is exacerbating that issue, the lack of vision within social care?
Well, I don't really, I'm not, I'm essentially an optimistic person, Sophie. So although I see some of that, I see, you know, not surprisingly, with the terrible things that have been happening, the focus is on care homes, and you know, the national discussion is around care homes, where of course, social care is so much more than that, but it's understandable that that focus is there. But if the solutions are about, you know, taking the care homes into NHS control or something like that, it's exactly the wrong answer to the problem. But I think what has happened that we've been really encouraged about is that all sorts of better ways of doing things have been coming up in some places. So we've been seeing bad things, not good things, happen in lots of places. But we've also been seeing glimpses of how things could be done better by people doing them better. So on our Twitter feed, we have a thing called Step Up. So when people with lived experience tell us, actually, there's something really interesting happening where I live, or the council have been really good with people with direct payments where I live, we've praised that and we've pointed to it. And there's actually been quite a lot of it. And so what we're getting is something to build on. We're noticing things like all those rules that we have around what you can and you can't do with your direct payment. They're stupid and they're not needed. And because of COVID, in some places, they've just been dropped and people haven't misused the money or died. They've used the money really well and really flexibly. So we've learned a lot about that. We've learned a lot about tech and et cetera, et cetera. But what's exciting me most at the moment, I think, is that sometimes we felt like we're in a struggle with what might be called the sector, you know, the big kind of national organizations that apparently represent the sector. We felt sometimes like they don't agree with us, you know, they're not thinking like we are. But recently, what's come out of the LGA and what's come out of ADAS is much more in our space. And we think that many of those leaders of those organizations have reflected over the period of COVID that it isn't enough to say we want money from government to do more of what we're doing now.
Okay.
And I think many of them have been saying that for quite a long time, to be fair, but I think they're bringing it together in the principles that LGA and ADAS have come out with recently. They're much more in our space. The challenge is what to do about them, how to make those things happen. And we think that we are, a friend calls it putting the jigsaw pieces together so you've got the picture on the box. And we think that we're getting to that picture now. We think we've got a sense of what the pieces are. There are still some really serious questions about how you make some of the pieces work and how you put the pieces together as the picture. But we've got ideas about that as well. And we're working hard ourselves and with those people that want to put the picture together to do so. And we do so with optimism and positivity.
Yeah, so that gives us a really good segue, because I want to hear from Anna to hear, is she feeling the same positivity, or is this in a sphere of still high level questions and conversations? So thank you for the minute, Martin. I'm just going to bring in Anna, and then I will bring you both in to have a good old natter about where social care should go next. Hello, Anna. Welcome.
Hi, Sophie.
How are you this evening?
Good, thank you. Yeah.
Good. Lovely to have you on. I really would think it'd be nice to hear a bit about how you have come in contact with social care services. I don't know if that's how you refer to them or how you're supported, and what's been your experience, especially in the COVID period where there's been so many restrictions and shielding and everything else that goes through that.
Yeah, a brief background on me, I suppose. I gradually became more disabled in my early 20s, and I think back in 2012 I had to kind of admit that probably I did need a little bit more support, and I was quite reluctant because I suppose I thought it was giving up my independence, but actually I started to receive a direct payment. Initially I had an agency, but very quickly decided I wanted to employ my own PAs so that I had a bit more choice over who was coming into my house every day. And so now I employ PAs using a direct payment, and I think I get about 30 hours a week of social care at the moment. And I think my experience, like a lot of people over the years, has been quite frustrating, and it's felt a bit of a sort of battle between social care. I'm trying to always say I need more hours, and they're always trying to justify why I don't. And this sense of, as soon as you enter the adult social care system, I was sort of broken down into a set of tasks, like how long do you need to have a shower? How long does it take to prepare some food? How often do you really need to go to Tesco's, or could you do online? And this sort of squabbling about what you can and can't do and how long everything would take, as opposed to, what actually do you want to, what do you want your life to look like? What do you want to do? And as somebody in my early 20s, then my mid 20s, sorry, and now my 30s, it just felt, it's so different from my friends who are just sort of getting on with life, spontaneously thinking, oh, I want to go here today, I want to do that this evening. I'm quite limited in a lot of my options of what I can do because of the amount of hours that I get.
And in terms of, obviously that sounds really dehumanizing, just having to, nobody has to do that if you're not receiving support. So it's really weird that we put that on people just because they just need some support from people. Do you feel that there's definitely a different way that we treat people who have a disability as opposed to people who don't? Like, do you feel that's ever changed or is going to change for the better?
I mean, obviously I can't comment on how it was in the long past. I think from what I've heard from other people, obviously over the years some things have improved. We've got things like the Equality Act now, and we've got various laws, but I think it was an eye-opener to me, I suppose. Using a wheelchair, I have been not visibly disabled, and then to become visibly disabled, people do react to you differently in society, definitely. Some people, I think in the social care world, there's this sense that we should be grateful for that there's any support, and almost it's sort of like lower your aspirations in a sense, and just sort of, this is what you get. And this sense that they're looking after us. So yes, they're keeping me safe, and yes, I'm fed and I'm clean, but that shouldn't be the bar. But that feels like that's where the bar is at the moment. That's where they say, yeah, we're doing a good job because you're safe, you're fed, you're clean. And we wouldn't, as you say, say that to other people.
And it's weird because if people think about kind of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's almost like you're putting people who are receiving support right at the bottom, and there's nothing else to go above that, because why would you want to? Because like you say, you're getting the basics that you need, which is really, really sad. Do you think that the conversation, so what about your involvement then with the Social Care Futures? And actually, I wouldn't mind hearing a little bit of not a CV, but that we were looking at this earlier today, all the things that you're involved with, and we picked up so many. So obviously I picked up the stuff around the Health and Social Care Select Committee. There's also some work with Demos, is that right?
Oh yes, yeah. I'm recently, they've just started a new commission called Renew Normal, which is looking at what I suppose what society wants life to look like in the UK after COVID. So I honoured really to have been asked to be one of the commissioners on that commission, with a sort of, I suppose I bring a health and social care slant to it, but there's lots of different commissioners with different areas like finance or education. And then they've asked, I think so far about 12,000 responses to their questionnaires from members of the public, asking people about their experiences of COVID during COVID, and what bits of it they want to keep and what bits they want to change moving forwards. So yeah, I'm doing that at the moment. Yeah.
And then you're involved with Social Care Future as well.
Yeah.
And that is similar, sort of trying to spark that conversation and think about what social care looks like. And from your perspective, what do you feel something like Social Care Future does?
I mean, from a selfish perspective, in a way, I got involved initially more in health and sort of co-production side, and then through meeting Martin and meeting people, I've got more and more involved in the social care side. And for me personally, there's a hope in me that one day my social care experience will change and improve, but also that other people, so my parents or other friends or anyone else that kind of at some point might need support from social care, will have a better experience. But I think for me, Social Care Future, when I read that definition, that vision, it's just so different to what I'm experiencing in my life. And I guess there's a bit of me that says we've got to have that as the goal. That's got to be our aim, because if we're not even aiming for that, then how are we ever going to change? We're just going to stay the same, if not get worse and worse slowly. And I think that is what everyone should expect in life. I think that's what everyone would want. And just because we get older, or we might have a learning disability or a physical disability or a mental health problem, we shouldn't be expected to then not have those equal access to those things.
Absolutely. Do you feel like, so Martin was saying that he thinks that there's maybe some light at the end of the tunnel, people are having conversations, that people are starting to listen to Social Care Future. Obviously, from your perspective, do you feel the same is filtering to people who are using services, or this is still really quite high level?
So I think there's some real pockets of brilliance happening. I go to certain conferences, or I speak at certain things, or I'm in certain meetings, say Social Care Futures meetings, or I was involved with Sky's Innovation Network recently, and they got together a group of, well, in my work stream, I think there was 5 local authorities, and who were doing really innovative, really good things. They might not have got the whole system sussed, but they were doing some really great things. And, I speak to their directors, and it would fill me with hope. I think I need to move to this area, because such a different attitude. So it can be done. And there are places that are doing bits of this. Probably no one would claim they'd cracked the whole of social care in their area. But then there's other areas that don't really seem to be changing at all, or even wanting to change. So I think it can be done, and I think there are more and more of those people that are starting to say, how do we do it, and starting to have those conversations. And perhaps more nationally, it is starting to get into the rhetoric a bit more. But as you say, it's not most people's experience on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah,
but we need to change that.
Exactly. And I think we'll look about how you both are doing it in a minute. But I was quite interested in how the clip that I showed at the beginning with the Health and Social Care Select Committee, because that was one of our our frustrations, because we submitted something to that. And when we first saw the description of it, it was very much focused. The wording was, how can social care support the NHS? And it was all about funding. And then somehow it's like someone added a sentence and changed it, and changed the submission deadline date to say, oh, and also how can we support the workforce in social care? So I don't know if someone had made that comment. And then obviously then they had someone like yourself, which was great, in that space talking about it. But when you described it, you sort of thought, well, I'm actually going to flip that on its head, and I'm going to start with the fact that it's not all about funding. And also it's really important to bring someone like yourself into the discussion. Why did you feel like you had to say that?
About the funding? Or about...
Yeah, you kind of changed the question.
Yeah, I did. Because what worries me all the time around social care, you hear it on the news, social care is in crisis, these councils going bankrupt because, 2/3 of their entire spending is now on social care. And it's made to sound like, there's this terrible problem that older people are getting older and living longer, which actually, if you think about it, is actually a really positive thing, really. And those people then feel like a burden when they're not. They're just, it's not their fault that they're getting older and might need a bit of support. And so we just hear this kind of crisis mentality and this lack of funding all the time. And then a tiny bit of extra money is kind of thrown at an already broken system. And what was worrying me was that this committee and this commission was going to try and look at how to fund a system that isn't providing what people want it to provide. And they might have been able to get a bit more money into it in some way, or change the tax system, or do the Germany model, or who knows what. But ultimately, if we're funding more of the same that most people don't really want, because I don't meet many people who are like in their 60s or 70s and say to me, oh, I really hope when I get a bit older and frail and my family put me in a home. I meet people all the time that say, oh, I don't want to go into a home. And I meet people my age who talk about the battle with social care and are scared of their review. I feel physically sick when I know my review's coming up, and that we shouldn't be living like that. We should be in a positive. It should be a positive thing that's there to improve our quality of life, not feel like a battlefield. So I really just wanted to say to the committee, yes, we need more funding, but we need to be funding a better thing, not just more of the same, because otherwise I think we're failing a system, and we're failing the people who work in it and who rely on it.
Yeah, I just hope they got that message. I hope they got the memo, because that's everything, isn't it? Thank you for that, Anna. I'm going to bring Martin in. He's back again. Hello. So what did you think about what Anna said there about just changing the whole system, that the system we have at the moment isn't working for people? I want to get to the bottom of anything that you've seen that you think that chimes with the conversations that I'm having in terms of what social care would look like. So if there's nothing out there is there nothing out there, do you think, that looks like the model of social care we should have? Or is it something like, I don't know, Helen Sanders's wellbeing teams, or more home care, or something totally different? Or you just in a space where you think it just needs to be a conversation for people in their place at that time? There can be no specific prescription for social care.
Well, I think that, as I say, we've been collecting these glimpses of the future from around the country that look like the kind of building blocks of the future that we want. And so the encouraging thing is that quite a few of these exist, but they tend to be one or two jigsaw pieces in a place. There are some places that are putting more pieces together, and where their developments look more promising. But mostly you have single jigsaw pieces. So if you think about it, the kind of future that we're talking about, I think we're getting clearer about what the components of it are. And so we can describe those components. And in each of those component areas, we can describe ways of doing things that looks a bit like that. And then the challenge is to look at what it takes to change from where we are now to where we want to be. So I think for places that are interested, we can now paint a picture of kind of what the elements are that need to be in place. The challenge, and I think we will find some local people and places and groups and organizations who want to do those things, what we call exemplars, places that can show others what might be possible.
Can you share some of those with us?
Well, it's a bit difficult to kind of name places, but some of the places where they're making a systematic effort to shift in the direction that we're talking about, places like Thurrock, places like Barnsley, and then you see glimpses of the future in elements of it. So, Anna's well on record of talking about her not so great experiences of direct payments in her place over the pandemic period. But there are places where people who use direct payments have told us, actually, they've done something really good around here. So Tower Hamlets would be a good example of that, for example, right. Where Tower Hamlets immediately communicated with people using direct payments. And that in itself is an amazing thing, like not imagining that they don't exist. So, hi, how is it going? What would be helpful? Can we help you with a contingency plan? Have you got your PPE sorted out? Would you like to use your money differently during this period so that it works well for you? Would you like a bit more money over this period to help you through a particularly difficult period? That is happening in Tower Hamlets, yeah? But it's not happening in that place that Anna lives, where I won't mention. And so we know that there are these jigsaw pieces, that the job is to pull them together. And the really difficult thing is that we have an existing system. So we're not starting from a blank page. We have an existing system. We have an existing set of cultures and practices and professions. We have a public that has an idea of social care that is really narrow, because that's the idea that we've given to them. Yeah. People think of social care as something for other people that we hope that we never have to be part of. And they think of it as where you go to when you can't cope anymore, or the person that will come in and get you up or get you fed and dressed. They don't think of it as it's about me and my brother and my sister and my family and my friends and my community, all contributing together to have a good life. So one of the things that goes on in the social care world is that we consistently say, why won't the government change or fix social care? Why won't they? Year after year after year, we get white papers and promises, and it doesn't get changed. We just keep saying that, and people get paid loads of money to say that in think tanks and things. It's been 20 years, and here's a list of all the green papers, and people get paid for saying that. Well, you shouldn't get paid for saying that. You should get paid for doing something about it to try and change it. One of the things that we have to do to change the mind of politicians is change the mind of the people that vote for them. Because by and large, politicians' priorities are the priorities of the people that vote for them. And at the moment, our sector is, as Anna said earlier on, telling people that social care is this place where you go to when you're kind of done for. To look after you, or if you're really, 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 really needy, we'll come in and make sure you're safe and fed. That's the story that our sector. When we did research on this with Lancaster University, that's what our organisations are saying. That's what the press is repeating, and that's what people believe. So unless we can change that, unless we can change that conversation with people, so people think, actually, this is about me and mine, and it's about a good life. It's not about care homes and home care and so on. Those might be a part of it, but what it's really about is what it takes to have a good life around here, and how that can be helped to happen. And that's fantastic, and that's what everybody should want. And next time a politician knocks on my door at election time, I'm going to say, well, that should be your priority.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Until we get that to happen, politicians aren't going to suddenly, have a flash of lightning and think, oh, actually, that's true. Social care is really, really important. Yeah. Even now, when we're in the worst crisis that most of us in our lifetimes have ever had, it's still not a done deal that social care is going to become a priority. Hopefully it will be.
I know. Don't get me started with that.
And if it isn't a done deal at this worst time you can possibly imagine, we have to ask ourselves, why have we not been talking to people about this in a different way,
Yeah.
so that they
I'm
can
gonna
see it as
stop you
part
there,
of them?
Martin, and because I like this idea of, I know that I've really got onto the point for you, haven't I? But I want to come to Anna. I know you're going to come in at that point, and I do want to think about how we change this narrative for the public, because I very much believe it has to come bottom up, if you like. I hate that term, but you know, from people rather than politicians.
I think we need social care to be a much broader thing in people's minds. It may not even need to be called social care, but much more about community and about how we all live our lives. And actually, not this others situation that we've got at the minute, especially in COVID, we've heard about the vulnerable. And, when they talk about social care, you always get the picture of the wrinkly hands and that sense of this weak, vulnerable group of people that just need looking after. And actually, the reality is that if I had some more care, I'd be able to go out a lot more and do more of these kind of things and roles. And, we've all got something to participate, to give to our community and into society. It will be different for different people. But actually, older people have got amazing things that they've lived through and amazing experiences to share with people, and a lot still to give to just by being in community. We're all important. And I think what we need to be starting to say to society is actually social care has a lot to offer as well. It has a lot of jobs to offer. It has a lot of positives by allowing us all to be a part of that community. The other thing I would say is, I think for social care to change, there needs to be a real change in attitudes of the way that social care interacts with people. So this sense of working in partnership with people, trusting people, allowing flexibility, those sorts of things. Otherwise, I don't think any of this will work, because we'll still be in the system where the system wants to control people. And I think that just can't ever work, really.
Absolutely, 100%. I don't think anyone will disagree with you on that one. And I wonder whether how do we make social care future? How do we get that into every type of commissioning area that there is? How do we get that conversation starting? Because there almost needs to be offshoots. There need to be advocates everywhere for it. How do we spread the word? What have you got plans for in the future for this conversation? Martin, maybe you've got some ideas.
So I mentioned earlier on that one of the things that we do is called Glimpses of the Future, Coalitions of the Willing. So as we're identifying things that we think are good and that could be built on, we look for people and partners who want to do more of those things. And so, because we're not an organization, we don't do very much ourselves. We, people who are part of our movement do things, and people that we have relationships do things. So for example, we think that commissioning really needs to change. We think it needs to change to enable the kind of shifts that myself and Anna have been talking about. And yet we can't go round and speak to every commissioner. Actually, I've been round and spoken to about 20 directors of social services in the past 6 months. But what we've done there is look for initiatives that are in a position where they can connect to larger numbers of people and commissioners, and see whether we can influence what those initiatives are doing. So in the example of commissioning, as part of the Social Care Innovation Network, we came together with commissioners and citizens and providers, and we came up with our thoughts about what commissioning would need to do to make a shift in the direction we were talking about. We gathered lots of examples of how some of those things were being done in different places around the country and methods that people were using, and then we shared them. And the next step is to find what we call exemplars or pioneers, places who would take these ideas and try and systematically use them in their places in order to show their peers what is possible. We think it's really difficult to have a kind of light switch change where somebody says, hey, everybody, we're changing to this way of doing things next week. And so we're going to have to build this, and we're going to have to do it in waves, and we're going to have to build ways of influencing others and demonstrating and showing that there are better ways of doing things that are not just better for people using social care, but better value and more sustainable. And our thought is that one key way of doing that is to find people and places and partnerships that want to do something quite significantly different, and connect them to each other and to sources of support so that they can do that over the next few years and show what's possible.
Perfect. And I'm actually going to be interviewing somebody from Sky next week, and I've got this. I know that you're involved with them, with their, I don't know whether the conversations with commissioning have anything to do with this or not, but I know the Innovation Network it does look at best practice in different areas. And I know that there's this rainbow. This is just like a graphic of some of the areas where we've done things that involve people. But Anna, your vision, is that similar to what's here? Or is there anything else you wanted to add?
Well, I think, I agree with what Martin's been saying. One of the other things that Social Care Futures is going to do over the next few months is what we're calling, we're calling it an appreciative inquiry, but it's not necessarily technically an appreciative inquiry. But what we mean by that, we were, when I gave evidence at the Health and Select Committee, you've already mentioned it. And the reason I ended up doing that was because Martin noticed that they were only experts giving evidence, in the sense of professionals, and no one with lived experience. So he, through Twitter, got involved. That's
how it happened.
And I got asked to do it. And to their credit, they also had somebody else in my session, and then in every session since. And I think it's really changed the tone of those sessions. But what we really realised was that, again, it's that sense of other people making decisions about social care rather than the people that use social care really being involved or having any power. It's that total imbalance of power again. And so we decided that we're actually going to hold our own inquiry or commission or whatever you want to call it. We're going to decide what we call it, and actually it's going to be led by a group of us. I think there'll be 12 of us who all either use social care or care for someone or have a family member that uses social care. Quite a wide range of experiences. And we're going to sort of lead the direction of that and have debates and call witnesses and do some research and all sorts of different things. But it will be led the direction by people who actually use social care. And the idea of that whole inquiry, the question that we're trying to answer is, what do we need to do next and now, and the system do, to enable that vision that we can all live the life we want to live to happen? So hopefully we'll actually come up with some more of those answers to the question you've been asking us, well, how do we actually do it, over the next, I think it'll be about 6 to 9 months, that will be an ongoing piece of work. So we're going to hear from some of those people, the glimpses of the future, the areas that are doing it well. We're going to hear from system leaders. We're going to do all sorts of things and bring it all together. But the real key, I think, for us is that actually what we're also doing is modelling that actually people that use services should be at the centre of this discussion and making the decisions about what the system should look like in the future, not be an afterthought that sometimes gets lost in and sometimes isn't there at all, even in the room, let alone making decisions or coming up with the ideas or the solutions in this case.
Yeah, and I think it's just music to my ears, that idea. I think that's how all of these things should really be focused. It should be a balance of people who are, well, they should be leading it. This is our care. This is what we want to see. I really don't understand this groupthink that we have in so much of our leadership within social care, where they just involving people, co-production, someone's just said, absolutely, but involving people with lived experience is just such a taboo. And when it is done, they pat themselves on the back as if they have solved every problem in the world. It's just a no-brainer. Involve people. So I love
Sophie,
this idea.
One thing for us is that there are people who don't do co-production or don't involve people properly in their debates because they don't want to. They don't want to hear what people have got to say. But there are also large numbers of people who don't do it because they're a little bit scared of doing it, or they don't know quite how it works or how to do it. And
see, I don't buy that, Martin. I really don't. I think they tell us that. They say what I normally hear in commissioning or in conversations. It's like, oh, well, we don't know how to reach people. It's really hard. The engagement is really hard. Well, you all are doing it. You're not backed by some huge funder, or you don't get anything from government, and you're just doing it by yourselves. Don't let them off.
It's true. There are a lot of people that does apply to, but there are also lots of genuinely good-hearted people who are just scared to do it. And I think we want to model that they don't have to be scared.
Yeah.
But I think it's not so much scared of having the people in the room. It's scared of what they might say, and then them having to actually change things and having to share some of that power, and the fear of, oh, I can't just decide that this is the best thing for my organization. I actually might have to listen to and work with these people, and they don't want to have to give up that.
Which is weird. Why do you go into social care if that's not what you want to do as a leader?
But it's a tricky thing, power, isn't it? And we've got to find a win-win for all of us here. We've got to find a way that everybody is motivated to do something different, I think, because they don't have to, and we won't be able to make them. So they're going to have to be motivated to.
Well, see, I think people go into social care for really good reasons. I think they go into it because they want to make a difference to people's lives. But I think also there is a cultural thing out there of looking after disabled people, older people. There's this sense. So they might go into it with the best intentions to help people, but even that sense of I'm here to help you is quite disempowering and quite suggests that the professional probably knows what's better for the person. And I think we've got to get away from that and as the way to help people. Instead of helping people, it's working with people, and that people have got their own autonomy, their own decisions. And even somebody, say, with very severe dementia, you can still ask them, give them a choice of what they want to wear that day, which coloured top, or what they want to eat. They may not be able to make those massive remember a lot of things anymore, but they're still a person and they've still got opinions. And I think there's a sense of how do we change that culture from we're here to look after you to we're here to just kind of give you the practical support or the support you need that you want so that you can get on and live your life. And I think that's the shift, really. And I think actually, we've got the Care Act. I would argue that a lot of my care, it's got the wellbeing principle in it. And actually, I would say they do have to do some of this stuff, and they're still not doing it. But that's just me being a bit.
And I appreciate that. And I agree with both of you, really. I love this debate. I love that we're having this chat about it. And I always think I went to the APPG for adult social care, and they had this co-production back in January or February, I think, meeting. And there was this real frustration with people there, people who were carers, people who had used social care in the future or currently using it. And they kept going back to disabled people's movement, independent living. I'm a big fan of the UNCRPD, and I just wonder why we're still having these conversations. Like, all those movements happened when I was like not even around, and we're still having these and it feels for me like I'm quite impatient, and I'd like things done kind of yesterday. So I think that's probably my problem as well. But I just look at it and I think, how are we even having these? Like, I don't use social care services, but I would be so disheartened if I was, and thinking, how are we still having these basic conversations right now? Like, the frustration. So that to hear that you all are having such an impact now, that you're being listened to, that there's things that are coming, that this inquiry, lots of people want to know more about it. So I don't know if we have a link we can share in the chat. I'm really excited about it, and we'll share, and maybe we'll do this again and see how the inquiry is going, or just help to share the message as much as we can, because I just think it's fantastic what you're doing, and it really does come from a place of people who use services and what do they want. It's really fantastic. Were you going to say something there, Anna?
Yeah, it's still really much in the early phases. We've just recruited the members of the panel, but it will be open to anybody there will be So we haven't really decided much yet, because obviously it needs to be led by that group of people. So it would be pointless us saying, oh, this is what we want the inquiry to cover. No, that group of people will decide, you know, the direction of the inquiry. But at some point there will be a way we will ask for evidence or whatever, and anybody will be invited to feed into it. So we will want to hear from as many people as possible, all different views, because that's really important, that it's not just the 12 people on the panel, it's everybody gets a chance to feed into it, because that's at the heart of it.
Yeah, thank you. And we've just shared the links for Social Care Future blog. And just for some clarification in terms of how it's supported, it's hosted by In Control, isn't it? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So as we said, it's not an organisation. It's a kind of an informal network of people. We have 4 conveners, which are Anna and myself, and Neil Crowther and Julie Stansfield. And yeah, In Control host it, and they provide admin support to it. And one of the brilliant things is having no money, Sophie. We've got no money and we've got no staff. And what that means is that anything we want to do, we have to ask members of the movement if they want to do it and if they will support it, and whether they'll, if it needs some money, whether they'll give some money, and if it needs talents and skills, whether they give us their time and their talents. And the brilliant thing is that they do.
Yes. Wow. That's it. That's a perfect example of community. People saying, even in your mission about the community, you've built that community, and actually the people within it, without any money, are lending their wonderful skills that they have. And look at the change that you've already done. So it's a perfect example how all of this works. So we will be definitely keeping in touch with everything that you are doing. And we have slightly gone over our hour, but I'm just enjoying this conversation so much. Will you both come back one time?
Yeah, sure. In I think probably in November, Martin, I'm looking at you. There's going to be another an online, what are we calling it, festival this time.
Yeah.
It'll obviously be online. So keep an eye out, follow Social Care Future on Twitter or the blog, and more information will be on there at some point. But that should be a fun few days.
Great.
Virtually this time.
I think we've got something. We've made a little.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. So that's all about the festival for change. And what are you hoping to happen at the festival? There's an email here. I don't know if people can see, socialcarefuture@gmail.com as well. Yeah. So what are you hoping to do at this festival?
Yeah, so it's a combination of things. We're putting on virtual sessions about the things members of the community are doing. So we'll be talking about the various kind of initiatives we've got going, like catching people up on the work we're doing around talking about a brighter social care future. Some of the other initiatives that significant initiatives that members of the movement are doing. We'll be having a series of debates on kind of hot topics, things that we really need to talk to movement members and others about, that are tricky and that we need to work out what we're going to do about them. We're going to have entertainment, because one of the kind of key features of all our gatherings is we have music and fun, as well as difficult conversations and challenging discussions. So it's going to be a kind of catching up on where we're up to and what we're doing and what we're learning, and an invitation for people to come and join in debates and tell us if they want to either be involved in activities that are already going on, or if they want to set up activities of their own as part of our movement.
Brilliant. I can't wait to get involved in that, because it sounds fantastic. I'm gutted that I missed some of the actual physical events that you had just before. I think end of last year you had one. I remember I had a diary clash and everyone said it was just fantastic. You had entertainment, you had vibrant discussions, and yeah, it was wonderful. So really
a lot of arguments as well, weren't there, Anna?
Oh wow, heated, passionate debate.
Passionate debate, exactly. I love that. We want more of that. We want more of that on this channel. It's fantastic. Okay, well, I've taken enough of your time. I can speak to you for so much longer. So I will take you out of the stream now. But thank you so much, both of you. It's been fantastic speaking with you. Do take care.
Thanks
for inviting us, Sophie.
Bye-bye. So there you have it, two really, really inspirational people. And I feel like I just would love to hear more from them. And so you can, if you just make sure you follow Social Care Future on Twitter, on their socials, and get involved with anything that they're doing. The festival, the inquiry, the appreciative inquiry that Anna was talking about sounds fantastic. So if you know people who might be interested in them, then do spread the word and make sure that that information is spread as much as it can, far and wide. So next week we're back again. We're going to be, I did touch on this a little bit. We're going to be talking to Catherine Smith, who is the new Chief Executive of Sky. That's the Social Care Institute of Excellence. And they do host a lot of information actually through COVID. They've produced a lot of training and information for people who use services and organizations, and also they have a vision, and they host and promote the co-production week, which we had just in July, and I think it's on its 4th year or something like that, and I'd love to hear more about that from her. So do tune in, follow us, subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Twitter, and of course do share with your friends and anyone in your colleagues who you think might be interested in this. So thank you very much for joining us this evening, and we very much look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.